Welcome to K11 Konversations, a dialogue series where we discuss the intersection between creativity, culture, and innovation. Thank you for joining us today. In this session, co-presented by K11 Art Foundation and CoBo Social, we have invited trailblazers of New York's graffiti and street art scene. We have with us today Martha Cooper, Lady Pink, and AIKO to talk about their experiences, friendships, and how their paths have crossed. So to get us started, I'd love to get each one of our great speakers to introduce a bit about themselves and where they started. Martha, may I ask, when and what led you to take up photography and documenting the graffiti scene?
Well, I took up photography when I was in nursery school because my dad and my uncle owned a camera store, and they gave me a camera when I was 2 or 3 years old. And so my whole life I've been taking pictures. What led me to photographing graffiti was meeting a young boy who showed me his drawings in his notebook and explained to me that he was practicing to write his name on the wall. And before that, I had no idea what I was seeing on the walls. I didn't realize that kids were writing their names. I had just seen random tagging, and that kind of opened a door for me. And he said, I can introduce you to a king. And the king turned out to be Gandhi, who was, in fact, a king of graffiti. And I became fascinated.
That's such an amazing story. Gandhi's an absolute legend. And actually, Martha, I have learned so much from you.
Well, thank you. And you know that I met Aiko, but I met Pink very early on. And we had some adventures together, which we can talk about later.
And I look forward to learning all about these. And so, Lady Pink, I read that you were just around 15 or 16 years old when you started in graffiti. Could you tell us about your first graffiti experience and how that opportunity came about?
I started writing graffiti at the age of 15 because of my very first boyfriend that I had from 13 to 15. He was arrested for graffiti and sent to go live with relatives in Puerto Rico. So I mourned his loss and started tagging his name around the junior high school. I was still very young. But then I went to the High School of Art and Design in the middle of New York City, where kids from every corner of New York came there, and I was introduced into the subway painting. And then the adventure began. It was just thrilling to be going underground and sneaking into the subways and getting fame and getting respect and traveling all over the city, meeting other young artists and just, getting up on the subways. And little did I know that was going to lead to an art career in the early 80s. There was a big explosion of things going above ground. We met Martha Cooper and other photographers, filmmakers, gallery owners, and museums, and everyone wanted to have us come above ground and do work and films and exhibits. And it was just a whirlwind of activity there. So we go way, way back, Martha and I, from the early 80s when this was all just starting to blow up. So I'm a veteran of the subway trains and galleries and projects with young people and all kinds of things.
And how did you come up with the name Lady Pink?
Actually, my friend Scene came up with the name Pink. He decided if I was the only female hanging out with a group of guys and the only female in all of New York City at the time, they figured they'll exploit me for my feminineness and gave me the name Pink. And I titled myself Lady because I felt I was royalty in high school.
I would like to say you're royalty in the graffiti scene back then too, that's for sure.
Perhaps.
Now, Aiko, you arrived in New York from Tokyo in search of your path as an artist in the 90s. Could you tell us about this experience and how you found your way to graffiti art?
Yeah, I came from Tokyo. I traveled to New York first time in 1997. As an artist, I wanted to do something, So I started from almost nothing, zero idea. And in the first time, I studied English and tried to get into some art business, but it was really, really hard. So I helped Takashi Murakami, and I spent 2 years at his studio, studying and learning, like becoming studio artist. But eventually, I made a lot of friends outside the studio, and that made me more interested because a lot of my boyfriends at the time was doing graffiti and street art, and I felt like, wow, this is more interesting. Can I join you guys? So yeah, that was the beginning of my new journey in New York City, and I kept traveling and working with different artists in New York, California, Miami, then start traveling to Europe, Asia, Africa, and I met Martha Cooper and Lady Pink. It's kind of strange. It's kind of like a magical. I met them same time in 2006 at this venue called 11 Spring, I think. Yeah, do you remember Martha and Pink?
I think that's
I
the one
was,
that's right. Right.
yeah,
Anyway,
Pink was painting upstairs, and I wanted to say hello, but like Pink, you are working hard, just like painting your own world. So I was just standing behind you, and I watched you paint, and Martha show up with big camera and start taking pictures. So like, wow, that's Martha Cooper. So that was like my another chapter. I started to make more friends, like girlfriends, and we started to work together. So I have several like turning point and meeting point, and that takes me another journey, and it's been never ending. I kept traveling and working on different projects. So yeah, that's my graffiti street art journey.
Thank you so much, Aiko. I would love to learn more about the friendship between the three of you. As I understand, you guys, and as Martha and Lady Pink, you guys have explained, you've known each other for a long time. You've done many projects together. So could you share with us how did you all meet?
well, as Aiko said, I met Aiko at that Spring Street event, which for me was a turning point. I had basically decided I was not going to photograph graffiti anymore because I've been doing it for so long, and nothing had really happened. The book had come out, but it hadn't really been successful. But it was just at the point where it was kind of merging into street art, and I didn't know anything about street art. And that was really the first huge street art event in New York City, wouldn't you say, Aiko? That Spring Street, the first where I think the Worcester Collective got a lot of street artists together. And Aiko introduced herself to me. I really didn't know anything about street art at that point, very, very little. But I was intrigued because I had lived in Japan for 2.5 years. And I didn't really have any Japanese friends in New York. So Aiko was especially interesting to me because she was Japanese. Ango Skoshi Dekimasu. I can speak just a little bit of Japanese. So, the whole idea that a Japanese woman was here in New York, and of course Lady Pink. Like, I don't remember when we first met. Pink, do you? I mean, we were sort of hanging out. Might have been at GPI, one of those early galleries. Honestly, I don't remember.
I was too young.
I think our paths crossed. You don't remember either, right?
I was too young. I don't have memories that far back. But I did keep journals and everything. I wrote it down. So I'm sure I recorded it at some point. But there was just so many exhibits and events and shows that early on that if it wasn't 1 week, it was at some rich person's house or at a gallery or at a nightclub or, we probably met at a million different places.
Yes, I think our paths must have crossed a lot. But we did have some great adventures together, which I don't know if you want to talk about those, but some of my fondest memories are some of our not so legal activities.
So I admit I did sneak you into a train yard. I think you were 39. I was maybe all of 18, 19. And I'm thinking, I'm bringing in this old lady to the train yard. Got to be careful. So at 39, I thought you were old.
Yeah,
But really, um, we went with a couple of guys and we got some iconic photos from that. But I didn't really trust these guys. So we fled. We told them we were going to go to the other end of the yard and go pee or something. And then we just never came back. I really thought that they were probably going to rob you, but I'm not sure. I just really didn't trust them. It was just us two, and we're both small women, and there were a couple of really big guys. So we fled, but now we have some iconic photos, and I believe that Scheme is back in the scene doing amazing, amazing work, which is always, good to see. We had lots of other adventures. Martha, you want to tell one?
no, I mean, that's basically it. That's the adventure that I mostly remember, and it was I don't want to be too specific. It was a yard that I never went into again. I don't think it was not your, but it anyway.
I hadn't been there. Yeah, I hadn't been there either. So we needed a guide.
Coming along, listening to this webinar and arresting us. So. But the pictures tell the story, and I actually think there's at least one of them in this catalog, isn't there? One of you painting a train in the catalog. I think that's from the episode that we are talking about now.
So, I was about to say, I've been very fortunate to actually see some of the photos of Lady Pink that were photographed by you, Martha, and so it's absolutely incredible to see that kind of documentation of such a great and amazing time.
But Aiko and I have had some crazy adventures too, and what comes to mind is going to this Roskilde Music Festival in Copenhagen, and our accommodations were not a dumpster, but what do you call it? But was it a
shipping container?
A shipping.
It was a shipping container.
Right. That's we managed to sleep in this. They gave us our own private shipping container, which was actually pretty, elegant for Roskilde. But anyway, so we have also been on some crazy adventures.
Thank you so much. While we're on that topic of collaborative projects between you, Martha, and Aiko, there's that new facade at the Urban National Museum that was, I believe, painted in 2021, if I'm correct. And this is in Berlin. Yeah. And I read up that it's Aiko, you designed it as in honor of Martha, and I really wanted to ask you about some of the motifs that are in there. I think really people need to hear about how important this wall is.
I think Pink is on that wall, right? Isn't Pink one of the figures on that wall?
I painted Pink. Pink, oh. Did you see the mural?
I think so, yes. Thank you so much. I'm honored.
Yeah, I was so happy to be able to do this project with Martha and you, and Martha is having this massive retrospective museum show in Germany at Urban Nation. It's all about her picture. Like you can find like thousands of great picture in the museum, and it's now opening. When was the official opening? It must be like a year ago.
Yeah,
but
because of back to Berlin in April for the closing, so it's been up for over a year.
So because of this pandemic, nobody could make it. Even Martha couldn't make it. So we are kind of depressed. I was gonna go and celebrate her opening, and we're gonna have a good time. But we stuck in New York, and I was kind of depressed. Then this museum called me, "Hey, Aiko, you wanna paint for Martha?" Like I couldn't travel for like months or months or months, and I felt finally, I got the ticket to go somewhere and paint mural. Unfortunately, I couldn't make stencil, but I had local graffiti artist friends like Carl Kent and his buddies helped me like, no, 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 you can do freehand, like we can show you. So actually, I practice by painting your mural. Like I
Oh,
did a traditional style, just
Right.
freehand, from sketches. So it was also educational for me. I'm still learning something by doing something. And this mural was about her picture, and we've been doing this remix project together. Like sometimes I take master's pictures and cut stencil and spray paint and make like new collaboration piece. So I thought, oh, this is gonna be a massive, biggest collaboration piece on the wall with my favorite artists, Martha and Pink, and all of those b-boys and b-girls. So I kind of had this like fantasy and super excitement before I depart New York. And I spent 3 weeks painting the wall by the trains, and I was able to meet a lot of cool people on the street. Again, like my studio is usually on the street, so I felt so good to be back on the street and did nice piece.
Thank you, Aiko. I really hope I get to see it one day. I've seen
Yeah,
photos of it and it's absolutely gorgeous.
Mm.
So
I'm so
congratulations.
proud of it.
Well, you can see my pictures at the very least. Because I was
Yeah,
able to,
because
but sadly, I wasn't able to go at the same time and take pictures of AIKO paintings, which I would have loved to have done. But I've forgotten why. I must have been doing something else.
While we're talking about Urbanation Museum, I also wanted to ask you, Martha, about the Martha Cooper Library that just opened last November in 2021. Because it's a really special library to my understanding. It's very specialized in literature on street art, graffiti, and urban art. And it's a lot of it coming from your personal collection, and I believe. Could you tell us a bit more about the library and what do you hope it will bring? It's such a significant contribution.
Well, Subway Art was one of the first books about graffiti, but now there are thousands of books about graffiti and street art, really thousands. And I had a huge collection, and I didn't really have a good place to store it. And when the Urban Nation was first being built, Yasha Young, who was the director at the time, I mentioned to Yasha that I had this idea for a library, and she immediately took it up and had them make a space. And I had asked around New York, and nobody was interested. So I thought Berlin was a good central place for this library, and I envisioned it as a research library. I mean, obviously, if people were to take the books out, they would never bring them back. So I'm hoping that, and I get a lot of requests from academics for information. They're working on their PhD dissertations, that kind of thing. So I think a centralized place where they can go and I'm looking for all kinds of zines and little known books and publications and collecting those. And I'm very happy about it. I mean, it's not really open right now. You have to make an appointment to go there if you want to do research, but hopefully it will be very accessible in the future.
I'm sure as more people learn about it and as we spread the word, it will be very popular down the road.
Yeah.
Now, I wanted to ask, each of you have been a trailblazer in your own right. You've been forging your own influential path in the graffiti, street art, and urban art movement. Martha, you were the first female photographer, to work for the New York Post. Aiko, you were the first woman to take over the famous Houston Bowery Wall in the Lower East Side. And of course, Lady Pink, you made your mark establishing your place in a subculture that was very much predominantly male. And I recall reading in one of your interviews, you mentioned it was also predominantly minorities. As role models and inspiration to women and to artists, what's a piece of advice or insight you could share?
Am I supposed to go first? I mean, my advice is just to do your own thing and be persistent. I think persistence and to not take rejection personally. You have to rise above all the rejection, because there will always be a lot of different ways that you can be rejected by your peers. And I'm still facing that sometimes. For example, if I go to an event and people don't know me and I'm standing there with my camera, I tend to get shoved out of the way by male photographers. If it's if it's a graffiti event, that doesn't happen. But if it's some other event, I just get pushed out of the way because they look at me and they think I don't know what I'm doing. And I'm an easy target as a female, as an old lady. So I think be persistent and don't worry about rejection. Just keep going. That's my advice.
Thank you so much. And Lady Pink?
So to follow up on what Martha said, yes, be persistent, be aggressive, be professional. I can give advice to up and coming young artists, certainly not to the vandals. They have to learn that in the street like everybody else. So for the artist, it's 50% talent, 50% business. So you do have to learn some business. We didn't go to college. We had to learn business the hard way, by making mistakes, by listening to our peeps and networking with other professionals and learning how to go about business, learning how to promote ourselves and how to be successful artists, because we're not just given everything. We have to work, twice as hard. For the ladies, you have to think a little bit more like a guy and meet someone, look at them directly into the eyes and shake their hand and be aggressive, be pushy, and speak like you're royalty and you're already famous. And that kind of confidence, bravado, we learn in the streets doing graffiti and by, talking trash to each other and being bigger and braver than you're supposed to be. And we bring that to the above ground world, to our business world. So I take on bigger walls and bigger challenges than I think that I could possibly do, but I'm going to take them anyway, and I'm going to give it a try. I will rustle up some friends and my husband and people to handle it, and we can do anything. So I have that kind of world conquering sort of an attitude, and you have to have that in business in order to succeed. Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much, Lady Pink. That's really important advice, I think, for women and for artists out there. It's still that sort of world where women really are still fighting for some. Well, I feel like equality has improved, but I definitely still agree that we're still on that side of needing to be strong and brave and courageous out there. And Aiko.
Yes, that's what exactly Pink and Martha keep telling me. They are always pushing my back, telling me like that. And I totally agree. You have to stay strong and you have to protect yourself. I think we were learning very tough ways. Like Martha and I traveled to Africa and stay in a slum, and even like I have to carry pepper spray and watch out everything. So I kind of learned the way to sustain myself, stay healthy, be productive. And I think I was fortunate. Also, I think we need a good friend. For me, having Martha and meeting Pink was like super fortunate. I have these two ladies I can ask advice or help, and I was able to do this, but not so easy. Again, it is not easy. So like I can tell the same thing to younger generation, millennium generation, and we are a little different because I'm still like being offline rather than being online, But now this generation needs to be online, keep talking to people, it's hard to be anonymous, Graffiti and street art started by being anonymous, but it's not so anymore, so you have to protect yourself when you want to do something, what you want to do. It's okay to do something. It doesn't matter being male or female to become artist. So just do your thing, but just be safe. Protect yourself,
Thank you so much, Aiko. Before we wrap up with the last question, I would love to thank all three of you. Definitely, your advice will be well staying with me, and I certainly see you all as role models for myself too. And so on that note, we do need to wrap up with one last question. So on the regard of this topic, what do you think we still most urgently need to address in terms of the role or the place of women in street art?
Do I have to go first?
No?
I saw that question that you had written it out, and I thought about it a little bit, and I thought, things have really changed in the last few years. So I'm not sure there is one thing that needs to be urgently addressed, because I travel around to a lot of street art festivals, and I have seen in the past couple of years that there's always been an effort to include women, which in fact there was not back in 2006 when Aiko and I first met and I was first getting into the street art world. I really think it has changed a lot. So I just think if you give women the confidence, it's maybe more on the women's side that they need the confidence to get in there and do it. I think that the places where they can do it are very receptive to having them. And that maybe I'm wrong. Why don't you guys say what you think?
Okay, I agree with Martha. She's the one that gets out and goes to these festivals and sees what's going on. Historically, I have always tried to include whatever other female I can get a hold of, even if they're barely qualified to be amongst the big boys. I will bring them along, give them the confidence, give them the courage, give them the opportunities. And now I see it everywhere else. I think it's part of this a woke movement, and everyone wants to include women and ladies and all kinds of events. So I guess it's growing, but frankly, I live in the woods. I'm far away from everyone and everything. I don't know what the hell is going on in the world. Sorry.
And Aiko, any thoughts from you on this?
I think Pink and I live in totally different worlds right now. I'm taking subway every day in New York City. Every day is like it's like a playing video game. So it's a lot of hustle. You a lot of obstacle and troubles and noise again. It's insane right now. I don't know if Martha knows, but even like taking train is like I don't know. It's hard to say that the days changed, And again, I feel everyone should be paying attention to each moment, and you have to take care of yourself, more and more. And we have so much information right now, and also we can jump into those subjects you like to learn easily. So I like to suggest spend more time like learning something, doing something positive for yourself, maintain for whatever happens in future. I know it's not about art, but I guess it's about lifestyle. But that's what I can say to everyone right now.
Thank you so much, Aiko. I mean, that's absolutely very, very important. It's great to hear that, we are making changes in this scene, and that, as you said, Martha, it isn't like what it used to be a couple of decades ago. With that note,
5 years ago, not even decades, but just, I'd say the last 5 years, things have really changed.
Which is a great thing to hear. It means we're doing something right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think so.
Now, with that, really big thank you, Martha, Aiko, Lady Pink, for all your insightful sharing today. Thank you to all our audience for joining us. If you liked our talk today, be sure to stay tuned for more upcoming conversations on art and culture. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you.